In this week's short attention span webinar, we're going to talk about two major objections. And Kelly, I'll tell you where this came from. I've got these these case studies and the white papers that you can download off of the napl.org website. And we collect information before you download them. And we ask a question, why aren't you selling more? Overwhelmingly, and I mean 80% of the answer to the question, why aren't you selling more, comes down to objections. And before we went on the air, and I told you that, tell me again your response.
Oh, yeah, that not only are objections the main barrier to success, but the objection that is, by and large, the most popular one is, I can't get around the I'm happy with my current vendor objection. I mean, we could spend a year teaching people. It's so complicated and there's so much, but this is a great starting point, I think, to talk about some tips and tricks on how to deal with it, because you're going to hear it all the time.
Do you remember what the definition of an objection is from Wikipedia?
A request for more information.
An objection is a request for more information. And we want to start there. We've said this before in other short attention span webinars. I want to say it again. It's a request for more information. It's not a blockade. Think of it as a client saying, just tell me more. Give me a reason to get around this, and your approach will be different. Mm-hmm. So let's start first with price. Kelly, my response to you is your price is too high. Now, first, is that we have to determine if it's a smokescreen.
Right.
We have to determine if they really mean that. Are they just comparing us with their existing vendor? There's lots of things going on here. But you and I like to talk about what happened prior to this event.
Right.
Because my feeling is, anyway, I won't speak for you, my feeling is you did something to lead the customer there.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You either positioned yourself in that deadly area of, let me just quote on something. Yeah. And then, again, that's commodity city. You have to be the lowest price or you're not going to get anywhere. And you're talking to the wrong people. You're not high enough up the food chain. You're not involved in the process enough. And by that we mean getting involved in the projects, getting involved early, so that by the time that issue of how much is this going to cost me comes around, there's nobody else that they're even talking to. You're the one with the ideas, you're the solution provider, so it doesn't even come up as an issue.
And you know what, gang, we've also said in the past that when you're even chit-chatting with somebody and developing a rapport, anything that you hear prior to giving the price can come back later. If you say to the client, what's on your front burner? What's really important right now? What's the company working on? Anything exciting coming up? Anything like that. Listen to the answer, because you might be able to pull it in later on. They say we already have a vendor even, and you say, which we'll get to, and they say, but we're having some issues now and then with quality, but they're pretty good. Whatever. Bing, that's a
big opening,
problem, right? You want to make mental note of that stuff. Just turn and make a quick note and then move on. So number one, we think you may have led them to the price objection. Number two, you've got to expect it. I read somewhere the other day, the lowest price isn't out there. I've never found the lowest price. Who's this guy that's got the lowest price? And what's his phone number? Can we go beat him senseless so we can get rid of this objection? So number one, you let it there. Number two, a request for more information. So you have to expect it. And what more information can I give? And it might be quality, it might be service, it might be delivery time. The more you can learn about the printed piece, the story behind the printed piece, then the more ammunition you've got to get against that objection. Kelly, do I want to know, or let me put it this way, is there a tactful way to say, how high am I? Or you just kind of go right down
you can definitely, absolutely. Just, first of all, you want to find out if the decision's been made and you've lost it altogether. So, what would really help me, Mr. Customer, is to let me know, how high was I? There's no reason not to ask that question, because they're either going to say, I'm not going to tell you that, or they're going to say, they're going to tell you. And sometimes you might hear something as high as 40% higher or something, in which case there may be some circumstances that mean you're not talking apples to apples. But I think even, like you said about getting ahead of it, is just to be straight up honest with people and say, I'm going to tell you this, we're not going to be the cheapest. Because no buyer is going to admit to you over the phone or face to face that they're looking for the cheapest price. Nobody wants to be viewed that way. So, but when you say it, you take some of the power away from it, and you kind of make it so that they can't really come back to you with your price is too high objection, because you've already told them that you're not going to be the cheapest. So it's kind of spinning it in a completely different direction.
I would also, if you've done your homework properly and you know the story behind the printed piece, what they're trying to do, etc., then you can be ready with another idea.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of coming back with, let me drop my price, you're like, well, let's look at it this way. What if we did this? Mm-hmm. And then it becomes a different kind of negotiation. Here's what I learned about your situation and what you're trying to do. So I had a different idea. So now you're changing the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go in and whatever piece that they've got that you're printing, if you go in and throw prices, you're playing their game, right? Mm-hmm. So change the rules a little bit. All right, let's move on, because there's more to that, but this is a short attention span webinar. So now, as you said, the number one of these objections is we already have a vendor. So, spill. What do you got for me?
Well, the response is typically, I'm not surprised to hear that. I would certainly hope that my loyal customers would say the same thing about me.
Right.
But I have 3 questions for you. What do you like about them? What do you wish they could do differently? And when's the last time they brought you a new idea? So you're basically trying to say, like, look, maybe the same old way of doing things isn't serving you all that well. You can also do things like, I've had that conversation with a lot of my current customers when they first became my customers, and here are the reasons that they chose to do business with me. So again, it's all about differentiation, and it's about kind of injecting that humanity into it to say, look, I understand that you're currently doing business with somebody. 99.9% of the people out there are already buying printing somewhere, but you're really looking for the opportunities that they're not blissfully happy, or that they're looking for something different. They're looking for somebody who's going to be more of a partner and bring them ideas and things like that. That we talk about this all the time. People get lazy. They love me, and that's when it's the opportunity for us to go in there and take that business away from somebody else.
So here again, if you've done your homework and you're walking in with an idea, then you can challenge the assumptions that were made prior to the design of that piece. Likewise, gang, if you are not bringing your existing customers new ideas on a consistent basis, you can, you will, and you should lose the business. You're as good as the last job you shipped in. It's an awful truth. Horrible truth. But just remember that if you've got to bring them new ideas to remind them why they're doing business with you, because you want your client to say, we already have a vendor, when they're speaking of you. Mm-hmm. And here's why we buy from them. Because they constantly bring us new ideas. They're challenging us. They're coming up with new technologies, new ways to solve the problem. They never take our business for granted. So that's the other side of that objection. All right, Kelly, listen, good enough for today. Well done. Thank you. And we will talk to you all again next week on another short attention span webinar.